Okay guys, so I'm finally working on the radiator core support for the 55 here, and I'm not going to be doing anything super fancy. I have the original style core support in there, and I've got the original mount for it off of the original frame, and I'm basically just going to make a mounting system from this, off of this bar to the radiator support there. Now, one thing that I do have to address before I do that is the mounting position of the radiator. Currently, it is set up to be mounted on the inside, like for a V8 car. So essentially what I'm going to do is take the support piece out, cut the welds that hold this U-hoop in, remove the U-hoop, flip it around, weld it back in, and then we'll focus on getting it all mounted up where it needs to be. Here you can see the situation I'm talking about. These are the mounts for the radiator, and they sit inwards, which is obviously not going to work. So I've already mocked up with the radiator sitting on the exterior side, and everything looks like it'll work real well that way. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, here, giving you a little better look at this. Basically what I'm going to do is just throw it on my bandsaw and cut straight through it on both sides, and just flip it over and weld it back on, and we should be good to go. Alright, so phase one was a pretty quick and simple job. Everything looks like it's going to fit with the hood, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next step, which is going to be creating a new mounting system for the lower mount. And I've got the shim kit and mounting hardware for that right there, which actually attaches to the lower part of this radiator support. If you see those two holes down there, you can see the position I had it mounted in before, which was close but not quite where it needed to be. Alright, I went ahead and bolted the support bracket on to the radiator support, and I think what I'm actually going to do, instead of running it from up here, I'm going to go ahead and just run it off of the front cross member like it was off of the original Tri-5 front cross member. It looks like I've got enough room to make kind of like a triangulated connection point. On to today is the radiator support. I'm going to go ahead and get back on that and finish it up. And I was going to do something pretty basic at first. Just, you know, connect it to the cross member, get it done type of a thing. But I remembered that I have a piece of tubing that I started to bend for a project, and I ended up bending it too much. So I had to redo it, and I kept this piece of scrap. And I think it's actually going to work pretty well for our radiator support, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with it. Alright, so here's our radiator support. Here's the piece that I was going to just weld to the cross member right here with maybe some triangular shaped pieces of steel or something like that. But this piece here I think will weld very nicely from the front most points of this cross member, and basically we'll just attach a piece of 3/16 plate in the area where the mount needs to be and re-drill those holes, and we should have something that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and get this thing measured up and cut to size. Okay, so as usual, my marks were pretty spot on, so I did have to trim it down once, but we're ready to go here. Basically what I'm going to do is clean up the edges of this cross member, clean up the ends of this, and then we'll get it welded in. Welded in, I'm going to actually make the support piece and get it welded to this, because doing that while it's in the car is just an extra step I don't want to have to do. Okay, well, I started fitting it up in the first iteration I had made it, and I had to end up moving the mount point to the outside because the rubber mounting pad was interfering with the bar. So this is basically what I came up with, and we're gonna go ahead and mock it up on the car again so we can get our bolt hole locations so we can go ahead and get those drilled out. All right, so we went from this to this in about 45 minutes. Let's go ahead and get it welded onto the frame. All right, radiator support mount is complete. And while we're down here, I'm gonna go ahead and work on getting the front sway bar mounted to the frame rails. It needs to go up here, and in order to do that, what I'm gonna do is just drill some holes and weld some nuts in there so that I can bolt it up. And then I'll be able to check that off the list and move on to the next thing. Okay, so today I'm working on getting my brake lines all set up, and I'm starting at the back. What I'm gonna do is create a couple little tabs that these will mount to, just like they would on a stock Corvette. And I'm gonna have my T-fitting right here. It's going to pretty much connect to this line, and then I'll run another hard line all the way over to the other side, and it'll connect in the same area. And then we'll move on to the front. Okay, I whipped up a couple of quick little tabs out of that old radiator support piece that I had. And we're just gonna get them welded to the frame and move on to the next step. All right, I got the rear brake lines all mounted up. And I also have the front brake lines mounted up. I went ahead and welded the original tab that came off of the subframe back on there. Luckily I kept it. Got both sides done. So basically all I have to do now is put an end on this, make a small line to go to this from the T, and then run another line all the way around to the other side and do the same on the front. And then we'll worry about matching up the lines to the brake master cylinder. All right, I got my first couple lines made up and flared here, so we are on our way to being done with the rear. Last thing we gotta do here is make our crossover piece, and get started on that right now. All right, so I'm basically done with the the rear portion of the brake system. Obviously I have to take the body off again and put a bunch of clamps on all these lines, but it's all fitting nice and tight, and it'll work. So we're gonna jump to the front now. Front lines are pretty much done now. Here's the passenger side crossover. There's the T-fitting, and there's the driver's side. I do have to run the line up to the master cylinder still, but probably gonna drop the car down to do that. And that's pretty much a wrap on the brakes. So we're starting to get real close here. Hey everyone, what's going on? So I got a little bit ahead of myself and started working on the intercooler setup without recording, but I didn't get too far because I don't quite have all the parts I need. I need more pipes and couplers for the passenger side, but I'll show you what I'm talking about and how far I've gotten. So on the turbo outlet, let's see if you can that 90 that comes off the turbo, I shortened it about 2 inches so it will clear the subframe, and I was able to make the charge pipe for the driver's side. And that's about where I'm at on that. But what I'm going to start doing now is modifying the cooling system coming off of the engine so that the hoses will match up okay, because I've got like a 2 1/4 outlet here and a 1 3/4 outlet or inlet on the radiator down there, and up here is 1 3/4 to 1.5 inches. Now I think I could probably find a hose pretty easily to adapt this, especially if I just weld like a 45 on here and angle it up. We'll just need a 90. And I'm going to attempt to make the lower very simple too. My plan is to take some of these stainless bends that I have. I'm gonna cut a good portion of the outlet off, probably back to about here, and then basically weld on like a U-bend to turn it around and point it down towards our inlet there. So all we'll need is a 90 for a hose as well. So that's the plan for today. First thing we're gonna do is take off the alternator so we can remove that outlet. Alright, I'm gonna use my bandsaw and I'm basically just gonna cut along the machining line that's made there. And we're gonna run it on the face of this because we know that it's flat, and hopefully it'll cut it pretty straight. It walked a little bit on the bottom side there, but we'll just even it out on the sander. You can see it's a low right there. Not a big deal. Okay, so I've cut it down to about as short as it could be, and I've got a tight radius 90 and a wide radius 90. The reason why I'm using a tight radius 90 coming off of it is because it'll give us a little bit more clearance for the intercooler tubes, which is going to be pretty important. So basically going to do the tight radius off of the outlet, and I've got this other piece with a little extension already welded on it. It's going to point down just like this, and just want it to be in line with the outlet. So what we're gonna do to make sure that first is we're gonna weld the extension piece on here so we can get a better idea of where exactly it's pointing. Probably put, let's see. Maybe like a 2-inch piece off of it. Alright, next step is I'm going to weld this piece onto here, and that's going to be where our hose will clamp to. And then we can determine what angle we need to weld these two together. Make sure the gas is on. Okay, so I've got it tacked on, and I found a piece of scrap 1 3/4 pipe that I'm using as a gauge to see just how good my angle is, and it lines up with the outlet of the radiator pretty dang good. So we're gonna go ahead and go with this angle. So we're just gonna go ahead and get it welded up, and we'll be done with this portion of it. I actually am gonna put a bead around this. I should have done that before I got this far, but oh well, to kind of give the clamp something to hold on to. Well, I have read that welding to cast is gonna create problems, and today I just found that out firsthand. I did start to hear it stress cracking, and I noticed as I went to finish welding it that it had cracked pretty much completely around, and as you saw, I was able to break it off pretty easily. So now I have to figure a different way to attach it. I was thinking maybe I would just make a flange with the same bolt pattern as this, but I would rather leave this alone because it's pretty important for alternator alignment in the belt. So what I think I'm gonna do is see if I can't get like a silicone bronze wire, but I have to do some research first because I don't know if that's something I'll have to do with the torch or with the TIG. So for now, we are stuck. I ran over to my local welding store and saw what they had in stock for my situation here, and what I came across was nickel silver brazing rods that are flux coated. It says right here on the back, used in joining carbon and alloy steels as well as non-ferrous materials. Will join most different metals including stainless steel, cast iron, nickel, and brass alloys. And it's made by MagTorch. So we're gonna go ahead and give it a shot. First thing I'm gonna do is Google search the process, see if I can come across any videos that will give me an idea how I should be doing this, and we'll go from there. Okay, I watched a couple of videos and read a couple of how-tos, and it sounds like it's kind of pretty much similar to brazing like copper, and I have a little bit of experience with that because I've done some refrigeration work. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the torch out and start heating it up. I did remove a lot of the weld that cracked off of the cast iron from the stainless tubing so that I have somewhere for the filler to go. So let's start heating it up and see what happens. Okay, it looks like it actually bonded it together pretty well, and it feels pretty strong. It ain't pretty, but we're gonna go ahead and make it as pretty as we can with our redneck mill. So here we go. Okay, well, I cleaned it up a little bit with a die grinder and a grinder as well, and it's still not too pretty, but I'm really confident that it's gonna hold because it seems to have bonded these two pieces together extremely well. So we're gonna get it bolted onto the car and move on to the next step. But first we'll lay a couple beads down on this so that it clamps well. right, check it out. I think that'll do the trick just fine. Now all I have to do to complete the cooling system is go to the auto parts store and find a couple of 90-degree hoses. So I don't think I'll bring you along for that, but I'll see you when I get back. I think I was at Napa Auto Parts for less than 10 minutes, and they didn't even have them hanging on the wall like I'm used to. They were all stuffed in cubby boxes, so I'm pretty proud of the fact that I was able to find exactly what I need that quick. Granted, they're not that complicated of shapes. All I have to do now is cut them down to what I need and see if we can't make it work. Well, I've got the top hose pretty much where I want it, and the bottom hose was going well until I cut it too short, so now I have to go back to Napa and get another one. But luckily I did see that they had two on the shelf, so I'll be back.